welcome to Bronx Talk. Tonight's guest is the council member from the 11th City Council District. That includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Bedford Park, Norwood, Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge Heights, Van Cortlandt Village, Riverdale, Spuyten Duyvil, Wakefield, and Woodlawn. Last week, he was appointed chair of the council's Committee on Education, and tonight we'll talk about that. His recently passed affordable housing bill that calls for city-funded housing projects to include more 2- and 3-bedroom apartments. We'll also talk about concerns about the possibility of an increased ICE presence in New York City. Our new mayor, the council speaker. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Please join me in welcoming back to Bronx Talk Council Member Eric Dinowitz. Nice to have you with us.
It's nice to be here, Mr. Hall of Famer. Anyone going to jury duty, make sure you salute Gary as you go into the courthouse.
My sign is up there. But that's not really what you're here to talk about. We appreciate it. It's your 10th appearance on the show. You had once asked about that, but with the various debates and forums, and so here you are. Before we get to the real local issues, although this becomes a local issue, what are your thoughts on Minneapolis and what's going on there? And then, of course, we got to really talk about the possibilities for New York City and our very diverse borough of the Bronx.
Yeah, I mean, it is, what's going on there and really across the country is terrible. And every moment that we don't spend speaking up about that, it is going to get worse. I mean, they're literally killing people. And this is all at the behest of a president who is using this immigration customs enforcement arm of the Department of Homeland Security as like his own personal police force. And just they are operating with impunity, and it is literally killing people. And right here in the city, we're of course also scared for the kids, students, families that are being torn apart and or deported or sent to detention facilities. So we're already feeling it right here in New York City.
And you know of even people in your own constituency who have been affected?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just most recently we heard about a kid, 5 years old, whose dad was detained in Texas. They for a while
that was
didn't
the one
know.
in Minneapolis.
No, this is in New York City in my district.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
In my district.
Because it's similar to what happened in Minneapolis.
It's happening all over, and it's happening so much that we don't hear all the stories, but this father was detained, moved to Texas. We didn't know where the kid was for a while. And meanwhile, this 5-year-old's grandmother was in such a state that she had to be hospitalized because she was so distraught. We had a city council staffer who was here legally, working legally, who was detained after attending his already regularly appointed, scheduled court appointment. Like, he was doing everything right, following the rules, working towards our city, and he was being detained. And, you know, we were talking about that while we were talking about people being killed by ICE agents.
If they were to come in, I mean, this is, again, we're repeating a dialogue that people see on TV all the time. If they were to come in and say, the worst of the worst, which is what they said that they were going to do, and they took people who really had criminal records either here or in their other countries, whatever, that might be a different thing, and then work with wonderful police forces like the NYPD and said, look, would you work with us to get these people out in an organized way? I think there would be a little.
Here's one of the biggest lies about that. I don't think people disagree that if you do terrible things, you should be in jail or deported. I don't think that you have a lot of disagreement there. But that's already done. Like when someone's convicted of something and they're already going through that process, then immigration is already called. Like that already exists, even with our sanctuary laws. So this idea that we're protecting murderers and rapists just isn't accurate. It isn't true. And you have a guy in the White House who continues to lie about it. You have Kristi Noem, who continues to lie about the circumstances under which American citizens are being murdered by ICE agents. Like, they are lying to the American public. And I think what we have to recognize and what we have to do is all those people who supported Donald Trump and all those people who are the Republicans, even Democrats who voted for them, you know, have conversations with them and make them, you know, understand that the thing they might have voted for, that getting rid of the worst, is not what they are getting.
Not what's getting.
And talk to them. You know, so many of them will say, like, I don't want to get rid of families or like the people who are working hard. I want to happen what the president said would happen, and it is not happening. And so I encourage everyone, in addition to everything else, continue talking to your friends, your Republican friends, people who voted for Donald Trump, about this crisis we are in our country.
I do want to get to local issues, but I guess it's too early to speculate if, there's a military presence, a larger military presence here in New York City. We are probably, everybody knows we're a quote-unquote sanctuary city. Is there any thoughts on that, or leave it to the NYPD and mayor to sort it out? How do you look, and what does the council think?
I think we all have to stand up and say we can. When it comes to ICE, they have demonstrated time and again that they are not making us safer. And that's what we all want. No matter what political party you're in, we all want to be safe and feel safe. And ICE has demonstrated time and again they are not making us safer. By operating with impunity and not going through the law and going around the law, it makes us less safe. It's as simple as that.
Again, we could talk a long time about the specifics. We know what's in the news every day, but let's get to your housing legislation, which I thought was very interesting. I will just give people the background. It passed the city council by a veto-proof vote, but then was vetoed by Mayor Adams. In other words, he could veto it. So we'll talk about where it's at right now. Describe what it was, why you did it, and then what your hopes are for the future of this affordable housing bill.
Right now, the city, our tax dollars go to build affordable housing, which is great. But the developers are incentivized to build only 30% of those units to be 2-bedroom apartments, and the rest are studios and 1-bedroom apartments. So 70% of those units are not designed for families, and they're not even incentivized at all to build any 3-bedroom apartments.
So I want to just really break that down. So for somebody who sees a new building in their neighborhood, and we can talk, my neighborhood is getting a lot of that, and I live in Van Cortlandt Village, then only 30% of those are required to be for families, and the others are for single people or individuals.
If it's taxpayer subsidized, right? Market rate, housing, they do what they want. But when you're talking about taxpayer subsidized affordable housing,
okay, that's important.
Term sheets are available online. Anyone can look this up. They say minimum 30% 2 bedrooms. Well, guess what? They only ever do the minimum number of 2-bedroom apartments. And meanwhile,
because they can get more apartments in that space and get higher rents.
They measure their success. HPD measures their success not based on number of people housed, but based on number of units built. So of course they're going to build as many studios as possible. That's right. Meanwhile, families are leaving New York City. We are seeing fewer and fewer families live in our city, fewer and fewer kids in our public school system. Meanwhile, the ones who stay, many of them have to end up in shelter, where you have the vast majority of people living in shelter are families with children. And so my bill simply said this: look, if we're going to be spending our tax dollars to help build housing, we have to build housing that meets the needs of our city. And that means building more 2- and 3-bedroom apartments.
And what's your idea of the prospects? Can we assume Mayor Mamdani will support it, or that the council then, you have new council members, of course, got to deal with that?
We have a mayor who during the campaign, this is every candidate did this, so this is not specific to Mayor Mamdani, but he also said we're going to build 200 new units of housing. He didn't say we're going to house more people. He said we're going to build more units of housing. And so if I'm a mayor who's measuring my success based on number of units built, I want to build as many studios and single-room occupancy housing as possible. So I could sell it to the city that I did a great thing. But the fact is we need to build more family housing. And that's why I was on your show earlier talking about the charter revisions. One of the tools we had to do that, one of the only tools we had to do that, was the ULURP, where we were able to negotiate with developers. Because a land use change had to go through the city council, we were able to say, look, we want this to happen too. We want to build more housing, but we're not voting for this unless you're building more family-sized units. And the Charter Commission kind of took that power away in many cases. So it's going to be even harder to build housing for families.
So if this bill passes, like you presume, because it was 45-1, there are new council members, we understand all that, and the council still passes it, there's still some concern there because of the Charter Review Commission, the
No.
charter revisions.
What the bill does, it doesn't impact the ULURP. It is a vote, and it directs
see.
HPD
So
to
that's what they
build
have.
more 2 and 3
So
bedroom apartments as a baseline, regardless of.
You're optimistic at this point.
Well, I'm optimistic that the council is going to take action on this, because ask any single council member, and time and again, you will find that through their ULURP negotiations, they are always negotiating for more family-sized units. So I'm confident the council is going to take some sort of action to make sure that we are incentivizing the production of more 2 and 3 bedroom apartments.
On the other side, non-city and non-tax dollar subsidized housing, as you know, in my neighborhood, Van Cortlandt Village, we've got 2 huge buildings that were a market rate that don't fit the neighborhood, and there's a lot of fear about further development. In general, what, if anything, can be done with future projects like that, not only in Van Cortlandt Village, but in other places where you'd like to have some input or control? Is that become a charter revision thing? What has to happen?
Well,
to do
look,
that?
the council voted. I voted against it, but the council voted last year for City of Yes, which allowed for more density and empowered developers to do more of what they wanted to do in our local neighborhoods. And then the voters voted for these Charter Revision Commission ballot proposals, which sounded great. It sounded like we're going to get more affordable housing. But really what it did, it just made it easier for developers to build what they want, or for the mayor to decide what gets built where. So those votes, those charter changes really did take power away from local community members to impact what a building or what a neighborhood can look like. It's really important that we speak to developers more, and that local community members ensure that the city, right, the Board of Standards and Appeals, for example, or the developer themselves understand the needs of the neighborhood.
So is there anything that can be done, whether it's legislatively, which of course does take a while, or because, and it's not only my neighborhood, people in neighborhoods all over the Bronx are saying, wait a minute, somebody just sold their house, we're getting an 8-story building that looks like a square, we don't even know what's in there, and the next thing you know, it's market rate, and you've got a neighborhood that's got its character changed.
Yeah, and I would actually, there were a lot of people in Van Cortlandt Village who voted in favor of the charter revisions. I think in part because everyone wants to see more affordable housing. It sounds great.
Yeah, let me just add that there was a lot of criticism about the way they were written, because they were written in a way that made it sound like you were getting a gift, but instead it was kind of covert support for developers to make decisions.
Yeah. So I always, we don't legislate feelings and ideas. We legislate text, right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, we have this idea. We want to build more affordable housing. That's fantastic, and so do I. And we have done that throughout the city. We've done that in my district. But we don't, this idea, we don't legislate an idea. We legislate the text. And what the text actually does in these Charter Revision Commission, in these ballot questions, doesn't just make it, okay, you could build more affordable housing. It takes power away from the local community. I think a lot of people over the next few years are going to wake up to that reality. And so I am interested certainly in legislative solutions to making sure at the bare minimum, we're building housing that meets the needs of the community. We're building those 2 and 3 bedrooms, that it fits the context of the neighborhood, which is so important.
Yes, that fills the need for communities, but there's still obviously concern. I guess there's going to be more to come on something.
But when we empower a board that is wholly appointed by the mayor, whose offices are all the way in Manhattan, that's great for certain things. But I don't necessarily think it's appropriate for the community to have so little voice in what's being built next door. I mean, no one's asking for a veto for the next door building or the board of that co-op to have a veto on anything. but they certainly do have and should have a voice.
And of course, having the community boards have their legs cut off during the Giuliani administration, that's another whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk education. You were the chair of the Higher Education Committee. As soon as I said education, he smiled. I don't know if you guys noticed that. But now you're the chair of the Committee on Education.
Yeah.
You're happy about that?
Well, I don't know if your viewers know what I did before I was in the council. I was
going to say it, but I left it for you.
Well, the reason I smile, I mean, I miss it so much. I was a public school special education teacher. So, including right next to your studios at the Walton campus, at the Celia Cruz School of Music. So, yeah, it was my career for a long time, and I absolutely miss the kids. So, anytime anyone brings up education, you're going to see a smile.
Well, now you're going
on
to bring
my
it up
face.
all the time.
Right, and as chair of higher education, we highlighted a number of important issues that we got movement on. We got funding for programs like ACE and ASAP. We highlighted issues of anti-Semitism, which we've also spoken about on this show. And now we're looking at the birth through 12 in the Education Committee.
In what way? I mean, when you say you're looking at it, what are we looking at?
Everything. And I'll give you the first hearing we're going to have is about mayoral control. The state, in Governor Hochul's executive budget, proposed extending mayoral control for another 4 years.
It's on my list of questions to ask you about.
You want to talk about it now? Or
Sure.
Should we have a little suspense for the audience?
No, it's fine.
So our first hearing is about mayoral control. The governor proposed extending it. What I'm interested isn't yes or no mayoral control, good or bad. The state actually made recommendations about mayoral control. One of the big things I've heard from students and families and teachers is it is really a one-person dictatorship, so to speak. I mean, a chancellor may or may not take input from local communities, local schools.
But he or she serves at the behest of the mayor.
Yeah, and they also don't have to. I mean, I think Chancellor Samuels is going to do a great job. I've met with him, spoke with him.
You've already met with him.
Oh, sure. But there is no democracy in our school system. We have a PEP, a Panel for Educational Policy, which is ostensibly a board that approves things like school budgets, the DOE budgets, contracts. Majority of those members are made up of mayoral appointees. And so I think it happened once under the Bloomberg administration.
So is your bottom line that maybe we should relook at mayoral control or reform it so that there's still a little more community input without going as far as having the community-driven board, local district boards that we used to have?
I don't think there's any city in the country that has more centralized power in a chancellor than New York City.
Fascinating.
So at our hearing, we're going to look at, is this working? Has mayoral control demonstrated better results for our kids, our families, our communities,
and the teachers,
and other places, and the teachers, of course.
So just to conclude this point, you're not saying yes or no. You're open-minded to really having the dialogue.
I think the purpose of hearings is oversight, and it is important to have that dialogue. In what ways can we ensure families, teachers, like SLTs, school leadership teams, don't have a real voice? They have advisory. CECs don't have a real voice and have voting power. I think these are important elements to discuss.
That could be reformed. How do you think the city did on remote learning on the one day that we had? Was that a good decision, or is it just a waste because nobody really logs in? Certainly younger people, et cetera.
I think when I checked in with the DOE in the late morning, I think they had something like 66% attendance. It was like something 330 something out of 500,000 kids who were supposed to log in.
Under the circumstances, I don't know, that sounds like okay, no?
Well, first of all, number one, can't we just let the kids have a snow day?
But then don't they have to make up a day later in the year?
That's the other part is this idea, and it feels from talking to a lot of kids and parents, that it feels sometimes that the remote learning is there for the sake of doing a day to comply with the state law. But I think it's worth exploring how much learning is going on remotely. We haven't
it's a very
really
good question.
since it's been a few years, I think, since we've tackled this issue. Maybe 2 years since we've looked at it as an education committee. But like, what's the purpose of remote learning? If the purpose is to comply with state law, like, cool, fine. If the purpose is to educate kids, I'm interested in hearing how much education goes on in a remote day.
When you walk into a classroom now and you've visited classrooms, you love visiting classrooms, we know that. What do you see that you don't like, and what do you see that you like? Let's start with don't like first, and then, because if I talk about what you like, you'll talk about all the great things, but we want to know what problems need to be addressed.
I have a general view of, in the entire system, that assessments, I think a lot of things are rooted in assessment. And it doesn't just mean like how the kids are being assessed, which is a huge part of it.
The state tests and all that, yeah.
It's a huge part of it. But how our schools are being assessed, or what they're incentivized to do. So I'll give you an example. 3 weeks ago, the chancellor and I, and the superintendent of District 10 went to Intech Academy in Kingsbridge, and they had a district-wide arts festival. And you had kids displaying their art, you had kids singing, dancing.
I'm excited already. Sounds great.
I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. Then you talk to the people in charge and you say, like, well, why do you do this? Why do the schools participate? And it's because they want to, because they think it's good for the kids, which is nice. But shouldn't our system assess schools and sort of incentivize them to engage in these district-wide?
Require? Maybe that's too far. I don't know.
It could be. But look, too often, superintendents, the district looks at the system, the DOE looks at their numbers. And you ask, well, what numbers are they looking at? Looking at things like Regents test scores, perhaps, credit accrual, attendance, really important markers. But we have all of these incredible things going on in our school. Despite what our system does not incentivize our schools to do, we have incredible things going on. I've seen.
So then I just want to move it forward so we have enough time. You were a special ed teacher.
Yeah.
How is special education being handled? Satisfactorily or not?
Poorly. And to be clear, we have great people. The deputy chancellor, she's amazing for special education, but it often feels as if it's this add-on, right? Let's deal with like general education, and then add on the IEP, and then separately deal with Carter cases where the city's spending over $1 billion a year, $1 billion a year, to either send kids to private school or pay for related service providers at private school, because the DOE has demonstrated they're unable to provide services for our kids.
So it sounds like you want to have it really be incorporated in the general flow of the school, and each school should have a way of appropriately handling special ed students.
Yeah, and I think to some degree, like, the schools do that. There are schools that very successfully do that. There are schools that try to do it, but some of the bureaucracy, I believe, does get in the way, including elements of the Fair Student Funding Formula, which is, I think, another episode for sure. Yeah. And same thing, the way we are assessing success and what we are asking our special education teachers to do for our kids with disabilities.
It sounds like the assessment thing is appropriate and necessary in that realm as well.
And just to be clear, it doesn't mean a high stakes test. It just means how we are measuring success, or what we are asking our kids, our teachers, principals, superintendents.
What do we want outcomes? Sure. Different subject. You were on the picket line with nurses.
Yeah.
Why? And why? And where is that at? And how do you view what is going on? This is a vital thing. I had actually a doctor appointment just for a checkup, and I canceled it because I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to cross the picket line. But what do you think about this strike?
Look, I think as a general rule in New York City, you stand with labor, right? This is a labor town. But think about, you're a person who goes to the doctor takes great care of you. And then the nurse is really the one who has more of that face time with you, is really taking care of your needs. Like, we are totally indebted to our nurses for our health care. And the things they're asking for are not outlandish. They're asking to be safe, for safety, when there are dangerous incidents happening at some of our hospitals, they're asking for the law to be complied with safe staffing ratios. Because even look at Montefiore, and look, Montefiore is a great institution in our district, in our borough, but the nurses are sharing that they're coding patients, that they're taking care of patients in the staircase, in the hallways. And that is not helpful to the health of our borough.
It's fascinating to me that you didn't bring up pay and all that, but there are conditional things that are paramount in this, in your view. Only a couple of minutes left. You did not endorse the mayor. How do you think he's doing, and what are you hoping to see from this mayor at this point?
Yeah, I hadn't made any endorsement in the primary or the general election. Look, I'm hoping for a mayor that's collaborative, that listens.
So far, it seems like he's willing. He states he's willing to.
Well, I'm more interested in what anyone does, not what they say.
That's fair.
I think he made a wise decision when it came out that one of his appointees had anti-Jewish social media posts. He said, you know what we're going to do? Should have done it earlier, but fine. He said, we're going to have an outside organization vet the appointees. I still think some of his appointees are problematic, but look, he won the election.
And he also came out against the pro-Hamas demonstration pretty clearly that this is not acceptable in our city. We don't support terrorists, etc.
Yeah, and I, you know, there are, if you saw the New York Times story about that, there was great discussion. And I am pleased that at the end of the day, he came out squarely against the Hamas supporters. And look, we in the city council are going to make sure we have safe perimeters around our houses of worship and our schools. We unveiled, under Speaker Menin's leadership, we unveiled a package to address anti-Semitism, and that includes making sure people are safe to go into their houses of worship and schools. I
got one more question. We only have a moment, and I vowed to my friends, can we get to 1% parks funding?
Well, I want to get to 1% parks funding, and I've been in the coalition every single year, rallying with them every single year. The question, of course, comes down also to the mayor. Is the mayor going to keep that commitment? He said he would. We'll find out. We got to run. Council Member Eric Dinowitz, always a pleasure to have you. Eventually, we'll do an 11th visit to BronxTalk. Would love. It's a joy every time I come by. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Folks, that does conclude tonight's program. We want to thank our producer, Ray Pagnucco, the Bronxnet production and editing crew, and of course to you two, and he knows it. It's always about the people of the Bronx. We'll see you next week, and this will be interesting to you. We feature an extraordinary exhibit at the Bronx Documentary Center, which will be quite interesting about the history of the Bronx. We'll see you then. Good night.